Hi, welcome back to the farm. My name's Roz, also known as Passion Flower, and you'll find me here each week talking about my farming and creative life. This week's episode is going to take on a little bit of a different format as I have been busy with supervising of Year 12 exams this week, so there'll be no farming and no creative either. But what I am going to do is give you a little recap of the She's Crafty market, which was last weekend, and then I'm going to go and answer those questions that have been submitted for my Passion Flower birthday question and answer. So let's get into it. So first to She's Crafty market that was in Castlemaine last weekend. I want to say a huge thank you to Megan and Pauline from Mavis Handmade and Melbourne City Dye Works for all of their fabulous work. They do so much in terms of the promotion and the organization and fundraising, and they have just done a fantastic job. Their communication is really great, and I think it was a really good experience for both vendors and stallholders, the people who are running workshops, and also for the people who attended. So I had a really great time. I saw some fabulous people, caught up with friends that I'd seen before, and also met a lot of new people as well. So hi, if you came by and said hello, it was really fabulous to see you all. I didn't end up taking a whole lot of video or photos. I always get really wrapped up in the moment and just get really busy. I drove up to Creswick on the Friday night after I'd packed my car, and then I headed out early on the Saturday morning to get there for my bump in time. I got there nice and early because I like to be well prepared, and had plenty of time to play around with my setup. And what I had planned and thought about based on the location of where I was worked out really, really well. I was happy with how everything looked, how I was able to fit everything, the colors, all of that kind of thing. Had a great location. I was just as you came in through the door. So I got to basically see and welcome everyone as they arrived, which was really nice. I have literally just unpacked my car, which I did on Sunday when I got back, and just dumped everything here in the shed, just still in its tubs, just in one big pile. And I have not had a chance to really go through and list the stuff that I hadn't had listed before. I have activated the Christmas sock yarn listing. So if you were after some of that and you missed out previously at a market, or you were not sure, it is now live on my website. So you might want to grab that now. And I will be hopefully over the next week or so going through those tubs, doing a stock take and adding back in either the things that I'd taken off the website because I wanted to make sure I had enough stock for the market, or things that I haven't even had listed on the website before, like the DK Christmas yarn. I think there might be one Christmas scrap pack left. So if I find it, that will be going on to the website as well. And I know that I hadn't listed, I don't think, poolside cocktails or island life onto the website either. So there are a few things I know I need to add or update in terms of numbers and get all that sorted out. So as I said, it was a fabulous event. They had workshops going on throughout the day. They had spaces to sit and knit. They had demonstrations with knitting machines, and the CWA was making some really great food as well. And there were a ton of stallholders, plenty that I had seen before at markets, and some that were new to me, or that were not new to me in terms of who I knew, like knew on the interwebs, but that I had not met face to face. So it was a really nice day to wander around and chat with people, have people come and chat to me, and just share all of that love with everything yarny. So I'm hoping that they will be running their events again next year. They have sent out some information about expressions of interest already. So I think that means that they are going to go ahead. So keep a lookout for confirmation of dates and other information as it becomes available. I'm working on my 2024 calendar now. Just today, I went and bought a new calendar at a glance, your month at a glance calendar, and I've started to pencil in where I think things are going to be, and where markets and events already that I know about are going to be in. And once I've sort of figured that out, then I will do the market schedule on my website as well when I get confirmation from the particular event. I only bought one thing from the market. I wandered around and looked at everything, and so much was beautiful and inspiring. And honestly, I could have spent so much money, but I have a full stash plus all of the yarn here. And I have not been crafting a lot lately, so I really didn't need to go and spend any more money. So I was very, very disciplined. But what I did buy was a darning mushroom. Now, I have never darned my socks before. I have taken out complete heels and complete toes and like re-knit them, but I've never done any mending. And I thought it's super cute. So even if I don't use it for darning, at least I have this really super cute little darning mushroom. The girls from Fibersmith were just across the hall from me, and I went over and had a chat, and I decided to pick up one of these from them. And that is all that I bought. And now to the Q&A. Okay. First question. How did you first start learning about the dye process? Well, it started out by my sister buying me a little kit for my birthday with some undyed yarn, some powder, some vinegar, some like pots and pans, and a few some tongs and things like that. And I had been talking about lots of yarn and fibre stuff. I'd been knitting for a really long time. I had been going to Bendigo Sheep and Wool and buying a lot of hand-dyed yarn, but also saying that there was a gap. There was things that I would have really liked to have seen that I wasn't able to buy, or that were from overseas that were really expensive because of the shipping, that I wasn't able to get them here. So she was like, well, give it a try yourself. You might be able to make something that you're really happy with and that you can use for yourself. I also then started to watch YouTube videos about it. There was a channel called The Dyer's Notebook, who doesn't have any of her videos up anymore, but she used to talk a lot about dyeing. She used to do a lot of demonstrations. And there was also Highland Handmaids, who talked a lot about the business side of dyeing as well. And other channels like ChemKnits that do a lot of dyeing tutorials and showing how to do different techniques. So I watched a lot of that and played around a lot for myself. And then as I developed, I then kind of didn't rely on that stuff anymore so much, and just started to experiment and do my own version of things and play around with how I like to do it and develop on top of that. So I probably dyed for myself for about a year, doing lots of experimenting and knitting with what I had made. But then I just wanted to do more of it and more of it. And it got to a point where I had all of this yarn, and there was no way I was ever going to be able to use it all. And I was really enjoying the creative process of the dyeing. So I wanted to be able to share that with other people. So that's when I decided to open an Etsy shop to begin with. And then I moved on to my own website after that. So it started out with a kit and with some YouTubing. And from there, it just became me experimenting a lot and finding my own ways of doing things and developing my own color style. What was the first color you dyed up? Now, first I'm going to show you the first yarns I dyed, and then I'll show you the first colorways that were recipes that I actually sold. So, and there's a big difference. So first, so these are the first yarns that I ever dyed. I actually have them. I knitted a little bit with these, but then I put them aside because I actually don't know why, but they sit in my yarn stash, and they're just a little memory of those first colors that I ever did. This one here ended up being as part of the image of my logo. When I first started, I had a passion fruit flower and this color yarn as my logo. These other ones were some of my very first experiments where I literally had one skein of yarn in not very much water and was just sprinkling powder on. So you can see how intense and dark they came out. Certainly not the color palette and aesthetic that I currently dye, but they are quite fun. And it was a good way to really experiment and see how the powders reacted and how it all came together. All of these, I'm going to be completely honest, because they were my first ones, when I first started to knit with them, I discovered that the dye was coming off in my hands. So I had to reskein them, put them back in to heat set them again properly with more vinegar and more heat and steam. So they were certainly part of my learning process. So I think that's why I kept them separate, because I just sort of wanted to remember where I really came from. Now to the first colorways that I ever sold. And these are both still colors that I have in my shop today that have inspired my whole flower colorway series. And I had them at the market on the weekend, and they are still really popular and are selling as they have done right from the very start. So these ones will probably never end up being discontinued or go away because I really love them both. And this one is fuchsia. This was the very first one I ever sold. I know that for sure. And it has always just been part of my regular dyeing. And iris was also one of my very first colorways. And I just love how I managed to get all of this different coloring through it. And that was just from experimenting myself and doing something that I hadn't seen in any of the videos that I had been watching in terms of trying to teach myself dyeing, but just something that I played around with and really found that it was a good way to get that variation in color. So fuchsia and iris, my first recipeed colors, and ones that are still with me today. Right, next question. I'm interested in both local and ethical products. I'd like to hear about the bases and dyes. So good question. And I try and source all of my stuff from Australia if I can. Some of it does come internationally, but I buy it through Australian-based companies. So they are the importers and then I buy it from them. I feel that at least is supporting the Australian economy rather than going direct to an overseas source. So my current DK and sock yarn base comes from an Australian mill. My mohair base comes from an Australian supplier, but it is an overseas made product. And that is because of the fiber content and the types of mills that we have here in Australia. So I tend to stick mainly to merino nylon, which can be made here in Australia. Unfortunately, we don't have the capacity here to do a lot of scouring. We don't have a lot of mills that are able to do different fiber contents. The industry here is starting to have a little bit of a regeneration. Is that the right word? There are smaller mills coming up, and there are some alpaca mills, and there is a lot more that is being done locally, but not everything can be. And like same with like dye powders and things like that. So I buy Jacquard acid dyes, but I buy them from an Australian supplier. And all my packaging I buy from Australian suppliers. So I do my best to be as local as possible. And I think you'll find that across the industry, there are some that are just using small farms that are getting everything done here, maybe not the scouring done in Australia, but most of the other things. And some dyers buy everything wholly from overseas. So there's a whole gamut of where we're able to get our products from. And I do my best to get the majority of my stuff from Australia. All right, next question. After 8 years, you must occasionally feel the need to shake it up. Do you have a go-to breakout technique, or do you hunt out a completely new method? I'm not sure that I don't hunt out new methods, but there's a couple of things that I do like to do just to change things up a little bit. What I do, because of course, for all of the recipes that I have, It's very strict. It's a certain amount of water, a certain amount of dye, and otherwise I would get a different color every single time. And I want to be able to reproduce my yarns as I go. So when I want to have a little bit of a play or a breakout, what I do instead is I'll just throw a couple of random skeins into a pot, and I like to use up all of my powdered dye. So when I get a lot of little empty bottles, I'll put, and they're never really empty because the powder residue is still in there, and I'll put a little bit of water into each of those bottles, shake them up, and then I pour those onto a couple of skeins and just see what random colors come out. I might try and plan a bit of a color creation, or I might just line up the bottles in any random order and just grab them and pour them on and see what happens. So it's fun. It actually kind of gives you some new ideas in terms of how to match colors and put different colors together. You might accidentally put something together that actually turns out looking pretty amazing, and then you can use that in an upcoming colorway. Or it might look really rubbish and you can just put it in the bin, or use it for like scrap yarn for something, and then never see the light of day again. So I do that. And then I also often are thinking about different things that I could try. I actually have an idea at the moment for something that I really want to try doing, a different way of twisting and preparing the yarn to be able to get a different effect on it. So I've tried a whole lot of different things. Some I've seen on YouTube clips, and other things I have just thought up myself. I mean, I'm sure that they're not unique or new, but that I haven't seen or gotten from someone else, that I've just sort of tried it myself. So that's sort of where my different inspirations come from and my different methods come from. And sometimes it's about trying to find a quicker, easier way to get a color onto something, so that for markets and big preparation, I can create a colorway that can be a real quick and easy one to get a big batch out of. Or it might be something where I want to be really concentrated and in depth, and I'll spend a lot of time and put layers and really play around and focus on a couple of skeins and getting the color on that. So there's a whole lot of different things that I can do. And then I also try and then expand my creativity into a whole lot of other things as well. I have done acrylic painting, crochet, knitting. I have a small round knitting machine that I've been playing with. I've got a knitting Nancy, and I've been doing some different things with I-cord. I have 2 spinning wheels, and I've also just got a punch needle set. So I'm also going to be playing around with some punch needling. So in terms of the creativity, there's a lot that goes on, and some of that then ends up being translated into dyeing. And then sometimes some of the dyeing stuff can then be used in other creative ways as well, like with the I-cord that I've been doing, and maybe with the punch needling, I might be trying to use some of my scraps of dyed yarn to like recycle, reuse, do something different with that as well. So I feel like there's a lot within the dye space to be able to really shake it up and do some different things to keep the brain going in a different way. I'd also like to then spend time on my website and do a whole lot of different things on that as well to improve it. And that's also a different creative outlet that's still related to the dyeing, but not necessarily dyeing itself. Sorry, that was a really rambly answer. I hope it kind of got there in the end. All right, the final question for this session. Have you considered going to Bendigo's Sheep and Wool Show as a vendor? I bought some of your sock packs from Crystal Cat Stitchery stall and just wondered if you might be there yourself next year. Good question, and I have thought about it, but it is a huge investment in time, energy, and money, resources as well. I'm just not sure if I'm quite big enough or at that level. Before I go into that though, thank you for supporting Liz at Crystal Cat Stitchery, and thank you for buying a pack from her of my yarn. She asked me if I had any packs that I could put on her stall, and I said that would be great. It was a nice little collaboration we had together. So maybe I'll do that again in the future. We haven't talked about it, but yeah, Liz is a great person, and I really appreciate her bags. She's a wonderful maker, and yeah, we've had some good chats about creativity and things like that, and it was nice to be able to put my yarn on her stall and to also help her out on the Friday for a little bit as well. So would I vend? Maybe. As I said, I have thought about it, but it is a lot of work. It's just me in this business. I don't have big ovens or cookers. I literally use pots on 4 induction cooktops. So none of my batches of yarn are very big at any one time. So it'd be a big investment in terms of stock to get that much done. Would also be a big investment in money in terms of stock, paying for a stall, accommodation, food, all that kind of thing, time away, probably getting someone like my sister to come and help me for the 4 days, the setup day and then the 3 market days. I do seem bubbly and chatty and all that, and when you meet me in person, we always have a great time with people, but I am quite introverted, and I think 3 days in a row would be a lot for me. So I would really have to consider how I did that and how I managed myself, because being by myself to do that for 3 days would definitely be too much. So would I do it? Yes. Am I going to do it next year? Maybe. And I'm going to look into it, but I'm not sure that it will be happening because of all of those reasons. It is a great event. I love going as a shopper, and I support all of those vendors that go and do it because I know how much work actually goes in. It is a huge undertaking to get ready for a big 3-day event like that. Just getting ready for a 1-day event like She's Crafty is quite big. So, but to do that for 3 days is quite intense. But that's not to say that I won't ever watch this space, see what I end up feeling like. There is potential at some point to do it, but I actually probably would prefer to do lots of smaller markets than to focus on that big one, if that makes any sense. Thank you to everyone who submitted a question. They were really fun to answer. If that has sparked a question that you might have or a follow-up question, I'd be happy if you leave that below, and I will compile any future questions and maybe do another one of these. Well, that's it for another week. Thanks for spending some time with me. If you're enjoying these videos, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, and look forward to seeing you next week on the farm. Bye.